Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about Bekam Daf Ayin Vov. In the first part of the Gemara, I'm going to explain a bit from the outside, and then we'll learn the inside. So it says in the Mishnah, someone who stole, we know the din is that he has to pay double. If someone steals an item, any item, and we catch the stealer, he needs to pay double the value of the item he stole. Now the Torah tells us a special chiddush by shor, by an ox, a cow, and seh, and a sheep, that if someone steals one of those two and then or sells them or slaughters them, he needs to pay not only double, depends. If it was a sheep, he needs to pay 4 times the amount, and if it's a cow, he needs to pay 5 times 5 cows he needs to pay back. Now the Mishnah says that if someone stole, so now he has to pay double. He stole, let's say, a sheep, and then he made a Kaddish, he gave it to Beis HaMikdash, he said, this doesn't belong to me, this is going to be a korban, this is going to be a oila, a shlamim. Now it's a korban, it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. So the thing is, now if he slaughters or sells, he doesn't have to pay the extra payment of for the sheep normally has to pay if he steal and sell it or slaughter it. Even if he now sells it or slaughters it after he makes a korban, he doesn't have to pay, because when he sold it or slaughtered it, it already belongs to Hekdesh, not to the first owner. So, and the only time where you have to pay the payment of the 4 or 5 if he sold it or slaughtered the animal is only if it still belongs to the original owner, just that he stole it. But here it belongs already to the Beis HaMikdash. So the Gemara wants to say, the Gemara understands, okay, very good, we understand the slaughtering of the animal after you made the Kaddish, you don't have to pay 4 for a sheep and 5 for a cow. That's very good. But how did it become Kaddish? How did this animal that he stole become Kaddish? He said this should be a korban, this should be a shlamim, this should be a oila. So in that second, the transaction happens. It becomes not anymore the original owners, it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, to Bedek HaBayis. So that should be considered a sale. Like if I stole a sheep and I sold it to someone, I need to pay 4 times the 4 sheep. So also when you steal and sell it to the Beis HaMikdash, you should also have to pay that price of Abra B'Chamisha. That's the Gemara's question. Very good. I understand that what he did after he made the Kaddish, it's not anymore the owners, but making a Kaddish on that itself, you should be Chayav Dalet Vehei. Because it's like selling. What's the difference if you sell it to a normal person or you sell it to the Beis HaMikdash? So the Gemara Teretz. The Gemara says, I'll tell you Pshat. Pshat in the Mishnah, it's Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon holds Kodshim Shechayav B'Achar Yusam, meaning there's 2 ways how I could say, how I could promise a korban. I could say, Arei zu oila. I say on this sheep, I say this is going to be a oila. So now if this sheep dies, okay, I tried, it didn't get there, there's nothing I could do, I'm not chayav b'achrayas. But if I say Arei olai oila, it's obligation on me, I need to bring a oila, and then I bring a sheep and I say this is going to be the oila and it dies, so I need to bring another one because the responsibility is on you, not on a specific animal. So that's called kochim shechayav b'achar yusam, that if they lose, you need to bring another animal. If you took the responsibility of bringing a korban on yourself, not that you said that this animal is going to be a korban. So Rab Shimon holds that kochim shechayav b'achar yusam, it's called his, it's considered still in the home of the owner. It's the lashon in the Gemara is Kochim Shechayav B'Achar Yusam B'Reshusei Demorei Kaima, and therefore, so it's not called a sale, even though that it's talking. First of all, it's talking about over here. The Mishnah over here is talking about when he said Hekdesh, he said Arei Olai Oilo, and it's a responsibility on me. And then he was Makdish it. So this korban, I'm responsible if it dies. So therefore, it's considered like mine. It's not like I didn't give it, it's not full sale, it's not full transaction when I gave it over to Hekdesh. So therefore, I'm not chayev dalet vehei on that doing. I'm not making a hekdesh. But Rashi explains, you're going to ask me, okay, if it's still the owner's, so why, if I slaughtered it now after I made a kodesh, I sold it now, why should I be potter? He says, yeah, very good, it's still considered connected to me because I'm chayav b'achrayus, but still, the name of hekdesh is enough on it that's called lav demorei ketovach. It's not the master's anymore. It does not belong to the master. So, so we have an explanation. That's pshat in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah it says that on the hekdesh is not called selling. You know why? Because Reb Shimon, it's talking about where he was makdish something that is chayav b'achrayus, and it's still in demorei. Says the Gemara, no, it doesn't make sense. How could this be Reb Shimon? At the end of the Mishnah it says Reb Shimon oimad. That means Reb Shimon has a different shit. It doesn't hold of this. So this must not be Reb Shimon. So we can't say that. Says the Gemara, new teretz. Says the Gemara, teretz. It's Rabbi Yossi Haglili. Rabbi Yossi Haglili holds kochim kalim. That means like shlomim, kochim that are considered less kodesh normally because you get the meat to eat. So shlomim kalim, the din is that it's considered mo'on bailim and he can mikadesh isho of it. It's considered his. So therefore, the Mishnah is talking about where he says hikdish. You know why it's not considered like a sale? Because it's Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yossi says it's talking about over here. We are saying it's talking about lefi Rabbi Yossi, and here it's talking about kochim kalim, where he made the hekdesh shlomim, and therefore it's not like a sale because it's still yours. It's not a transaction, and that's why making a hekdesh is not like a mechira. So says the Gemara, okay, so what are you telling me? You're telling me it's Rabbi Yossi Haglili, and we're saying the Mishnah specifically talking about kochim kalim, and that's why it's not like a mechira. But what would be if it would be kochim kalim? If someone say arei olai oilo, sorry, not if someone would say if arei zu oilo, someone would say this is a korban that's kochim kodoshim. So making a hekdesh, that would be just like a sale, and the din would be, what would be the din by a sale? You have to pay dalet vehei. So that means the Mishnah, when it says that gonav tovach umocha and then hikdish, sorry, gonav and then hikdish and then tovach umocha, that's only talking about kochim kalim, but kochim kodoshim you'll be chayev for that making a hekdesh. You'll be chayev like a mechira and you'll be chayev dalet vehei. So why in the Mishnah earlier on did we find a case where you'll be chayev dalet vehei only in a case where the hekdesh happened after the sale or the slaughtering? We could say, oh, but there's a much better case. Even if the hekdesh happened before the slaughtering or before the sale, you'll be chayav dalet vehei. In what case? By making a hekdesh of kodesh kodoshim, because that's like a sale and you chayav on that dalet vehei. So says the Gemara, no. Really, doesn't matter kochim kalim, doesn't matter kodesh kodoshim, oilo, shlomim, doesn't matter what type of korban. The din is, the Mishnah applies. The din of the Mishnah applies. That if you makdish for the hekdesh, it's not considered like a sale, and therefore afterwards when he sold it or slaughtered it, lav demorei ketovach. And why is it not like a sale? I'll tell you why it's not like a sale. When Reuven sells ox to Shimon, so at the beginning it's called Reuven's ox, and now if I'll ask someone whose ox is this, he'll tell me this is Shimon's ox because it belongs to Shimon now. But if Reuven's makdish a korban, and before he's makdish a korban, you ask whose ox is this? The neighbor's going to say it's Reuven's. And now he was makdish as a korban, you'll ask the neighbor whose ox is this? He'll still say it's Reuven's. It's Reuven's ox that he's going to bring as a korban, but it's still on his name, so it's not considered a proper sale, and therefore for the hekdesh itself, you can't be chayav dalet vehei. It's not like a mechira. But on the other hand, it's still enough that once it's hekdesh, now when he slaughters it or sell it, it's not anymore the original's owner. It doesn't belong to him, and you're not chayav dalet vehei. Now let's see this Gemara inside. Gona behikdish, someone who stole, and then he gave it to Bedek HaBayis, v'achakach tovach u'morcha, he doesn't have to pay dalet vehei. Amri, the Gemara asks, bishlei ma'atvicha lo mechayev. I understand very well that on the slaughtering afterwards, after he made the kodesh, you don't need to pay dalet vehei dechiko tovach. When he's slaughtering it, the hekdesh kotovach, he's slaughtering something that belongs to hekdesh. V'lo demorei kotovach, and it does not belong to the original owner. Elo ha'ekdeshoi, but actually making a kodosh. When you say this animal should be kodosh, lechayev, you should be chayev. Why? Mali mocher le'edloit. What's the difference if you sell it to your friend? Mali mocher le'shamayim. What's the difference if you sell it, give it to Beis Hamikdash to bedek habayis? Says the Gemara, Teretz Hamani. You know what's chat in the Mishnah? It's Reb Shimoni. Our Mishnah is Shittas Reb Shimon. Do'ama kochim shechoy b'achariyusam. Kochim that you have responsibility if they die. If someone said responsibility on himself to bring a carbon, B'Shusa de Morikaim, it's still considered in the owner's possession. Says the Gemara, can't be. Hami the Sefer Reb Shimon, since the Sefer is Reb Shimon, Havi Reisha Lav Reb Shimon, the Reisha can't be Reb Shimon. It says clearly the Sefer is Reb Shimon. Elo, and we're talking about specifically Bekochim Kalim. It's talking about when it says Gona vehikdish, what was he magdish? He was magdish shlomim, and it's going lefi the shitta ba'aliba. The Rabbi Yosef Glili, the Omar that he said Kochim Kalim. The din is, it's more on Bailimhu. It's considered the money of the owner who made the Kodesh. If someone has a Shlomim, it's his. And it's literally his. And therefore, by making a Kodesh, this animal, it's not considered like a Mechira because it's still his. Says the Gemara, what? Aval Kodesh Kodoshim, if it would be a Oilo, my Mishan Tashlumi Dalet V'chamisho, if by making a Kodesh, that's like a sale and you'll pay Dalet V'hei. Added Tony Reisha, why in the first Mishnah early on we learned Gona betovach v'achakach hikdish, that if he stole and slaughtered and only afterwards they gave it to the Beis Hamikdash, then Mishalim Dalet V'hei. I have a much better case to say, a case where he paid Dalet V'hei. Lifloik belisne b'dido, even in a case where he was makdish before the slaughtering, you still have a case, he'll be chayav Dalet V'hei. When are you potter if you're makdish and then he slaughtered Bekochim Kalim? Because B'Shusa de Morikaim, Al Bekoche Kadoshim, like Oilo, the din should be Mishanta Shuma Ba B'chamisha because you magdish it. Says the Gemara, Elo, no. Loilo, really, Loish not no different, Koche Kadoshim, like Oilo, Loish no Kochim Kalim, like Shlomim. If you made the Kodesh and then he slaughtered it, it doesn't matter if you made the Oilo, doesn't matter if you made the Shlomim, you'll be potter. And you had a shaila at the beginning over here, Mali Mocher Le'edyoit, what's the difference if you sold it to your friend or Mocher L'Shamayim or you gave it to Bedek HaBayis? The difference is, Mocher Le'edyoit, if you sell it to your friend, Mikor to the Reuven, first it's called Reuven's ox, Vashto to the Shimon, now it's called Shimon's ox, because he sold it, Mocher L'Shamayim. If someone made his animal Kodesh, Mikor to the Reuven, at the beginning it's Reuven's ox, Vashta to Reuven. Now it's also Reuven's ox. Yeah, it's Reuven's ox that he's going to bring a carbon, but it's not considered a sale. They should be mechayev on that Dalet V'hei. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon Oima. So Reb Shimon says, let's look in the Mishnah again. Dafayin Dalet on base. The end of the Mishnah, the Mishnah says lots of cases where you don't pay Dalet V'hei, and then Reb Shimon says, Kochim shechayev b'achar yusom. Animals, we just learned that you have responsibility on them if they die because the responsibility is on you. Mishalim tashlumi dalet v'hei. You pay dalet v'hei. She'en chai b'achar potter. Now, we didn't understand, we said already in the Mishnah, that the Gemara is going to explain where is Reb Shimon talking about. So now, lefi hava mina, now the Gemara understands that Reb Shimon is basically saying that the reason why chayav dalet v'hei, this chilek that makes ben kochim shechai bar chayusam le'en chai bar chayusam is like what we spoke just before. We just said before that a svara, that making a kodesh should be like a mechira. So that's what Reb Shimon holds. Reb Shimon holds making a kodesh should be like a mechira, and therefore that's why chayv dalet v'hei. If gona v'tovach, gona v'hikdish. Well, not the Gemara asks a question. That's what the Gemara understands now. And that the Gemara asks, Amri Nehi, very good. The Reb Shimon Mali Mochel Edut Mali Mochel Shemayim. He holds the svara that making a kodesh it's like a sale and he chayav dalet v'hei. But Ibchami Boilei should be the svara should be the opposite. Why? Kochim shechayav b'achar yusam. If you have responsibility on them, that means it's still connected to you, potter. Then you should be potter. Why? When I made the kodesh, since I still have responsibility on this animal, I'm potter from this. From me, I'm not selling it. It's not considered a sale. It's not going away from my rishus. And then kochim sheinu chai bar chayusam. If it's an animal that I said this should be oil, and if it dies, it's not my responsibility. Then you should be chayiv when I made it such a type of kodesh, when I said areizu oilo. Then such an animal, when it's not responsibility on me, it's becoming more belong to bedek habayis. Then you should be chayiv dalet v'hei, because then it's more like a sale. Doesn't make sense. The svara makes sense that we could understand the svara of giving up the hekdesh is like sale, but it should be more sale when you have less connection to it after you do the transaction. Amri said the Gemara, Rab Shimon, a new explanation. You understood it totally wrong, or Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon was talking about a whole different thing. Rab Shimon Amilsach Risiko, he was talking about something else. It doesn't, we're adding type of thing in the Mishnah. Someone who steals from someone who stole, it doesn't have to pay, and then he slaughtered, it doesn't have to pay dalet v'hei. V'chein goynev hekdesh mebeis balim, someone who is magdish an animal and someone steals it from him, and he from beis habalim potter, he doesn't have to pay. My timer, why you potter when your ganev steals from something that belongs to hekdesh in someone's house? It says the Gulu Beis Eish about kefel. It says that when it got stolen from the person's house, Veloimi Beis Hekdesh, here, even if it's in your house, it belongs to Hekdesh. So, therefore, if it belongs to Hekdesh, it doesn't fit in the pasuk where it talks about kefel that says stealing from the person's house. On that, Rab Shimon says, if he stole this animal, that the person will have to pay another animal to Hekdesh if it dies or gets stolen. Chayev. When you steal it from such a carbon, you'll be chayev the ganav to pay kefel. My time. Why? Because Karina it's considered stolen from his house, because you're chayev b'achrayas. It's more belongs to him. I have responsibility on this animal. If a ganav stole an animal, like that someone said, areizu oilo, that he has no responsibility for this animal if something goes wrong with it, and the ganav stole, then potter. Then you potter. Why? Because it's not, this person doesn't lose anything from it gets stolen. It belongs totally to Hekdesh. So in that case, you'll be potter from kefel. So we now understand the Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon's talking about another case that was not really mentioned in the Mishnah, and he was talking about a case where someone steals a hektish animal from someone's back garden. So Rab Shimon says it depends. If the person, the owner is chai b'achrayis, he has a responsibility, it's connected to him, it's considered it's stolen from him. But if he has no responsibility, it's not considered stolen from him, only from hektish, and hektish is the miyut in the pasuk. Very good. Said the Gemara, Mechdish, Hamin later Rab Shimon, we know that Rab Shimon early on in this Masechta, what does he hold? He holds Rab Shimon that if someone stole a sheep or a cow and he slaughtered it, he has to pay 4 sheep and 5 cows, depends which animal he stole. So Rab Shimon said, what happens when he slaughtered this animal? He didn't do a proper kosher shchita and it became a treifa. You're not allowed to eat this animal. Rab Shimon says, in such a case, an animal that you can't eat, you're not chayav daled veh, you only have to pay the double. You don't have to pay the special chiddush of tvicha. We had that first in the Mishnah early on. So it says the Gemara, we know that he holds that the shchita of tov choy mochre has to be a kosher that you could eat the meat. Kochim, how could Rab Shimon say that if you stole an animal that's kochim shechai b'achar yusam and you shechted it, you'll be chayev daled vehei namish chita sheinu, you can't eat this meat? If you shecht the animals of hekdesh in some way, you can't eat this meat. It's meant to be a carbon. You can't just shecht it anywhere. So it's shchita sheinu. Why chayev daled vehei? Very good, you chayev b'achar yusam. So you should be chayev kefel because of that, but daled vehei you shouldn't be chayev. Says the Gemara, Ki also Rav Dimi Omer Rabbi Yochanan b'shoichet mimim b'fnim. It's talking about a specific case. It's talking about Rab Shimon's case where he chayev. It's talking about where he slaughtered this animal when it has no mum. It's a tomim b'fnim in the Beis Hamikdash l'shem bailim. And he said, so basically, Reuven had a carbon that he's chayev b'achrayis. Sorry, that he's not chayev b'achrayis. And therefore, when Shimon steals it, he is Chai Bar Chai, so Reuven's Chai Bar Chai of this korban, and then Shimon steals this korban, the Reuven's Chai Bar Chai it's considered the gun of Beis Ish, and then Shimon goes and takes this good korban that's a Tomim, and he's makravit in Yerushalayim, and it says this korban should be for Reuven. So therefore now the meat is totally fine, you could eat the meat. So it's Shchita Ruya, and that's why you be Chai Dalet Vehei. On that the Gemara asks, Vari Chosor Kren Labailim, if Shimon shechted it for Reuven, so what did Reuven's whole purpose of this korban to do? To bring out the korban. Here, the korban was brought to him. There's no stealing whatsoever. He shouldn't even have to pay Karen. After Shimon slaughtered this korban in Yerushalayim for Reuven, there was the blood, and the blood you have to take to the Mizbeach, and if you don't put the blood on the Mizbeach, Reuven doesn't get kapara. So over here the blood poured after the shchita, they mistreated it and it poured. So they never threw the dam. So therefore, no chazor karen bailim, because the bailim, it's not considered the bailim brought good korban. Didn't have a kapara from this korban. So therefore, everything works. Lo chazor karen bailim. But on the other hand, because the bailim still needs to bring a korban. But on the other hand, it's a shchita ruya. When Ravin came, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, he brought another teretz in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. B'shoichet tmimim bifnim sheloi l'shem bailim. We don't have to say that the blood poured. No, Shimon took this korban. It's a good korban in Yerushalayim, and he shechted it. But he didn't say that it's for Reuven, and for Reuven to be yotzeh his korban, he needs that the korban was nikrav al shmoi, that the kohen or the one who shechts it, no, this korban is Reuven's korban that I'm a shliach to do. No, it wasn't l'shem bailim. So Reuven's no yotzeh, but it's still a good korban and he could eat the meat. So shchita ruya. V'rish Lakish, a third teretz, V'rish Lakish oma b'shoichet ba'ali mumim b'chutz. This animal korban that Shimon stole from Reuven has a mum, it has a problem. It has a problem in its body, and you're allowed to shecht it outside Beis Hamikdash, and you're allowed to eat the meat. So that's the way why the bailim were no yotzeh with this korban, because it became a baal mum and he didn't take it to Beis Hamikdash. And Tzad Sheni, you're allowed to eat the meat because it's a baal mum. Says the Gemara, Toy bo Rabbi Loza. Rabbi Loza, as if he smelled, like he smelled wine or he smelled something good. He was asking up on Rabbi Yochanan. Toy bo Rabbi Loza. Rabbi Yochanan, the teretz of Rabbi Yochanan, v'chi shchita materes, v'ala zrika materes. How could Rabbi Yochanan tell me a teretz that he was shoicheted, and therefore it's shchita ruya and he could eat the meat? But if you don't be zorik the dam, it's not muteres. You're not allowed to eat the meat. The meat is forbidden until the shchita of the dam in Beis Hamikdash. And the dam, what happened? We said it poured. So it's not shchita ruya. And then also Rabbi Loza had a shayla Rish Lakish on Rish Lakish's explanation. V'chi shchita materes. Does the shchita make him motiv ala p'tir materes? When this korban that Shimon said, what did Rish Lakish say? They stole a korban, they had a mum, and then he happened the mum afterwards, and then they kind of went and slaughtered it not to Beis Hamikdash because you're allowed to. You're not allowed to. The only way you're allowed to is if you first poider it, if you first redeem it from Hekdesh, and then you makriv it. So he says, how could Rish Lakish tell me that why it's a shchita ruya because the shchita, it's what made the mutter. What made it mutter is the p'tia, redeeming it from Hekdesh. Says the Gemara, Ishtamte, Rabbi Loza, who smelt his shayla, forgot about Hod Omer Rab Shimon. This Rab Shimon said. What did Rab Shimon say? Kol ha'omed lizroi kezogdom, kol ha'omed lifto is kepoditom. Big chiddush. Anything, a blood that's going to be thrown, is as if it's thrown already. And something that, a balmum that needs to be poida, it's as if it's podi already. So basically, I just was explaining something a bit wrong. The Balmumna happened early on. It happened before Reuben made the Kodesh, this animal. But what we're saying, the Torah says, we said that Shchita Shein Aruya because he didn't do the Zrika yet, or Shchita Shein Aruya because the Pidyon did it. We're saying something that Oymed Liftois that's going to be poida later on. That means by the Shchita that you shecht the Chulin Bachutz, and only later on you'll be poida it. That means the Shchita doesn't matter, it's only the P'tiyah afterwards, but because you're going to do a P'tiyah, it's as if the P'tiyah happened already. That's a Chiddush. And therefore, already by the Shchita, it's a Shchita Ruya. And the same thing, even though they don't have Zrikas Adam, because Zrikas Adam is on its way, it's like a Zorg Dom and it's called Shchita Materes. And therefore, it's not called Shchita Shein Ruya. And where do we see that Reb Shimon says these two Chidushim? That Reb Shimon holds, Kol Oimed Lizrek is Zorg Domi, and anything that's going to be redeemed is as if it's redeemed. Said the Gemara, Kol Oimed Lizrek is Zorg Domi, where do we see that? The Tanya, Reb Shimon says, Yesh Noisa Shum Mitamem Tumas Oichlim. That Noisa is if you left a carbon more than the days that you many eat it. So you many burn it after those days, and you're not allowed to eat it, and it's Mitame. So we say that Reb Shimon says that it depends. Some Noisa is Mitame Tumas Oichlim and some not. Because Reb Shimon holds that Isura Ano, something that's forbidden to eat and I have no Ano from it, it's not Metame Tumas Oichlim. It doesn't have a din Oichel, it doesn't have a din of food that should be Metame, like food. And that's Reb Shimon's Chiddush. So Reb Shimon says over there, that depends. Some Noisa, the carbon that's left over is Metame Tumas Oichlim. It's like food. V'yesh Noisa, and some carbon that's left over, She'eino Metame Tumas Oichlim, that's not Metame Tumas Oichlim. Keitzad, what's the difference? Lon Lifnei Zrika, if the lina, let's say it's a carbon that you have to eat it in one day. And after that one day happened, Lifnei Zrika, you didn't throw the dam yet. The Zrika of the dam never happened. Eino Metame Tumas Oichlim. So it won't be Metame Tumas Oichlim because it was never Mutar B'Achila. Lachas Zrika, after Zrika, if the Zrika happened, then it's Roy Lachila. So therefore, Metame Tumas Oichlim, it's Metame Tumas Oichlim once it becomes a Noisa. V'kaimelon, and we know, my Lifnei Zrika, what is Lifnei Zrika? Does that mean literally Zrika, that he did the Zrika al Mizbeach? No, it means Koidem Shenira the Zrika, before it was ready to do the Zrika. And Lachas Zrika, it means Lachas Shenira the Zrika. After that was okay to be Zurich, Koidem Shenira Zrika Mahi, what, and we're going to explain what does it mean Koidem Shenira Zrika Mahi, what's the case? They had no second before in the day when you still could throw the blood, the shacht is samoch l'shkias hachamo. If you shechted this animal close to shkias hachamo and you had no time to throw the blood on the mizbeach, so in such a case, it's not called oichel because it was never oichel, because they never had enough time to do zrika. Then it's no metame tumas oichlin. Eino metame tumas oichlin. But la'achar shenira lezrika, but if it was already, let's say you did it 5 minutes before shkia, or in the middle of the day, Lon, and then you did noise on this carbon, the Abba shows beyond the Mizrake that you had enough time in the day to throw the blood, metame tumas oichlin. You could, this carbon is metame tumas oichlin, even though the zrika never happened, we're saying. That means a big chiddush in this Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says that only if the zrika was done. But we explain it doesn't mean if literally the zrika was done. If there was enough time to do the zrika, it's that if the zrika was done and it's called roy la'achila, it's called a good shchita, and therefore if it's noisa now, it's metame tumas oichlin. So we can see Reb Shimon holds kol ha'omed lizroig, something that's going to be thrown the blood. Kol ha'omed lizroig kizorg domu, because over here he's not zorik yet the blood. He just had enough time to do it, and already we say it's metame tumas oichlin. So therefore also by us, by Rabbi Yochanan, even though that you need the zrika, but because when you did the shchita, there was a zrika that we were planning to do and you had enough time, it's called the shchita ruya and you be chayav dalet vehei. So the Gemara Alma, Kol Ha'imid, we could see Lizroik is Ogdom. Anything that's going to be thrown, they had enough time to do it, is that if you did already. Where do we see that something that you're going to be poida, you might be poida, as if it happened already? The Tanya that we learned, Rab Shimon says, this is a very long page, Ayin Zayin Amud Aleph, Para metame tumas oichlim, ois oil v'ois lo sha'asa koisha. Para, we have a korban. The korban, it's not, I don't know, consider a korban, but a para aduma. When you want to mitar people from Tumas Meis, today we're all Tome in the heaviest Tumah that we can't get out of, and that's why we're not so connected to Tumah. It's a bit hard sometimes to understand what Tumah is, because we're a bit distant from it. We're all Tome. But back in the day when you could be Torah, it was more feelable, that feeling. But so today we don't have a para. Back to Baba Kama. Para metame Tumas oichlim. If someone this para aduma, it's considered tumas oichlim, even though the Rab Shimon holds that the isura no is not metame tumas oichlim because you can't eat it. Para aduma is metame tumas oichlim. Oy v'oisala shasa koisha. Since I had the potential to be eaten. What's the potential to be eaten? The Gemara explains. Omud Beis. V'omar Ish Lakish. Omer Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon used to say, Para niftes al gabe marachta. You could take a para aduma, and after you're ready on its fire, you could be poider it, and if you found a better para aduma, poider it, and bring in the other para aduma, and then you could eat the meat. Alma, we could see, and therefore it's considered metame tumas oichlim. But he didn't do that. But this para aduma never was poida. So why do we call it metame tumas oichlim? Elomai alma, we could see kol ha'oimed, anything that's going to be redeemed. Lifto is kipoditom. It's as if it's redeemed, because now if you find a better para, you could redeem it. As if it happened, and it's called metame tumas oichlim. And therefore in Rish Lakish, where he said where he shecht chulin bachutz, and it's roi la'achila, or it's not roi by the shchita. Yeah, it is roi by shchita, because kol ha'omed lifto is kipoditomi. Shkoyach.